Alright, let's dive into something that's been bubbling under the surface of the news cycle lately, and it's a doozy. Imagine this, the Trump administration just handed back a whopping $100 billion in tariffs to businesses. Yeah, you heard that right, $100 billion. But here's the kicker, this isn't just about numbers. It's about a policy called Liberation Day tariffs, and the story behind it is way more fascinating than it seems at first glance. Personally, I think this is one of those moments where the details matter more than the headlines, so let's break it down. First off, what even are these tariffs? Well, tariffs are essentially taxes on foreign goods coming into the country. But here's the twist, they're not paid by foreign governments or exporters. Nope, it's American businesses and importers who foot the bill when those goods hit customs. And when the Trump administration slapped these tariffs on, it was like a sudden tax hike for businesses. What makes this really interesting is the legal groundwork they used, the International Emergency Economic Powers Act from 1977. This law gives the president broad authority to regulate trade during emergencies. But here's where it gets messy, the tariffs sparked outrage both at home and abroad. Businesses were hit with higher costs, and there were fears that these extra expenses would trickle down to consumers in the form of higher prices. If you take a step back and think about it, this is a classic example of how trade policies can have ripple effects across the economy. Now, here's the part that really caught my attention, the Supreme Court stepped in, and since then, companies have been lining up to claim their refunds. Take Amazon, for instance. They got back around $600 million in the second quarter alone. But here's the thing, under U.S. customs law, only the importers who directly paid the tariffs can claim refunds. That means any relief for consumers is entirely up to the businesses themselves. Amazon's CFO said they'd pass some of that money back to customers and use the rest to lower store prices, but that's their choice. What this really suggests is that while the refunds are a win for businesses, the average shopper might not see much of a difference. It's a detail I find fascinating because it highlights the disconnect between policy and its real-world impact. But wait, there's more. Not all the money has been paid back. About $29 billion is still under review, and another $1.6 billion is stuck because importers haven't provided their banking details. From my perspective, this is where the story gets even more intriguing. It's not just about the money, it's about the bureaucracy, the delays, and the unanswered questions. Why hasn't this process been smoother? And what does it say about how these policies are implemented in the first place? One thing that immediately stands out is how complex and slow these systems can be, even when there's a clear legal mandate to refund the money. Now, let's zoom out for a second. These tariffs expired last month, and they've been replaced by new ones targeting 60 trading partners over forced labor concerns. What many people don't realize is that this isn't just a one-off policy, it's part of a broader trend in U.S. trade strategy. The Trump administration's approach to tariffs was aggressive, and while some saw it as protecting American industries, others viewed it as disruptive. Personally, I think this raises a deeper question. How do we balance protecting domestic industries with the global interconnectedness of our economy? It's a tricky line to walk, and these tariffs are just one piece of that puzzle. In my opinion, the real story here isn't just the $100 billion refund, it's the bigger picture of how trade policies are made, enforced, and undone. It's about the businesses that had to adapt, the consumers who felt the pinch, and the legal battles that followed. What this really suggests is that trade policy isn't just about numbers, it's about people, industries, and the global economy. And as we move forward, it's worth asking, what lessons can we take from this? Are these policies achieving their goals, or are they creating more problems than they solve? That's the question I'll leave you with. Let me know what you think in the comments below, I'm curious to hear your take on this.